So he goes on, the purpose of studying the Vedas is to know Lord Krishna, the primeval cause of everything. So, self realization means understanding Krishna and one's eternal relationship with Him. So, now that we know that the Supreme Being has a name and is a person, self realization then means developing our relationship with this person. So, our journey in study first took us to self realization, and now that same journey is taking us to God realization. We are now understanding who is that Supreme Being and what is His relationship and His value in my life. So, he goes on. The relationship of the living entity with Krishna is also mentioned in the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, 15.7. So here's another verse that is quoted from the 15th chapter. Mamevam sa jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatanaha manashashtani indriyani prakatishtani karshati. So he's describing there that the soul, mam evamsa, is part and parcel. Jiva loke, jiva bhuta sanatana. The soul is an eternal fragmental part of the Supreme Being. He is eternal and the Lord is eternal. And the relationship that they experience is through love. So in the previous verse, we learned that on the spiritual platform, Vasudeva or Krishna is the Supreme Person. And in this verse, we're learning that we are part and parcel of that Supreme Being. But we are Sanatana. Mamevamsa jiva loke, jiva bhuta sanatana, means eternally. That means there's no time when we separate from the Supreme Being and merge back into the Supreme Being. The word is sanatana. Eternally we exist separately. And if you think about it, this makes sense because love can only exist with two separate beings. Only when there's two separate entities can you experience love. How can you experience love if you're one entity and you're separating to experience love and then you merge back? Then how is that love? Love can only be experienced with two independent sentient beings. Unless these two beings which are eternally like that, then only you can experience love. So what will be the value then if we're not developing love as a yoga, which is bhakti yoga? The living entities are parts and parcels of Krishna. Therefore, revival of Krishna consciousness by the individual living entity is the highest perfectional stage of Vedic knowledge. So until you come to this point by studying the Vedas, if you don't come to this point, then you miss the whole point of the Vedas. But if you haven't studied the Vedas and you come to this point through listening to authorized bona fide Vedic knowledge from a disciplic chain of great spiritual teachers, then although you haven't studied all the Vedas, you've come to know the essential point of all the Vedas. Remember, Bhagavad Gita is the essence of all the Upanishads. Sarva Upanishada Gao Dukta Gopalanandana Parthavatsa Sudhir Bhukta Dukta Gita Amritam Mahat. That Sarva Upanishada Gao. It's the essence of all the Upanishads. So instead of learning Sanskrit, finding an authorized teacher, having time in this day and age, instead of all that, Sarva Upanishada Gao. If you take the essence of all the Upanishads, is Bhagavad Gita. Sarva Upanishada Gao. And if you take the essence of Bhagavad Gita, then Vedascha Sarver Aham Eva Vedyo. The essential point of Bhagavad Gita is that essence of all Vedic knowledge, Aham Eva Vedyo, is to know me, to know Krishna. Now, having established that, what is then the process to develop that love? So in different ages, there were different processes to develop that love with the Supreme Being. So what is it for the Kali Yuga? So in Padma Purana, it's described, Trete dhyayato Vishnu, krete yajato makai, dwarpa paryachanam kalo tat harikirtanat. That in Treta Yuga, Treta means Satya Yuga. That was dhyanam, Trete dhyayato Vishnu, it was meditation. In that yuga, they would do very deep meditation. So they would chant like this Om in very deep meditation. Sometimes for thousands of years they would meditate like that. And then Treta Yajatomakai. And then in Treta Yuga, it was during the time of Lord Ram, they would do yagyas. We know Lord Ram did a lot of yagyas, right? Sita had to go through the fire. So all these fire yagyas, this is the process of the Treta Yuga. And then Dwarpa Yuga, Dwarpa Paryachanam. In Dwarpa Yuga, it was opulent deity worship, worshipping in the temples. That's why you see there's so many different temples of Krishna in the whole of India. So Dwarpa Yuga was the process of deity worship, worshipping the deities, the Lord in the temple. And in Kali Yuga, what is the process to develop that love? Kalo tat Hari Kirtanat. Hari Kirtan. By doing the chanting of the names of God. So this is spoken in Padma Purana. This is not we Hare Krishna people are saying this. You can see here, this is quoted from Padma Purana. So the Puranas are saying this, that in this age of Kali, this is the process to develop your love by doing bhajans, by doing kirtan, by doing japa, by chanting the names of God. And we see that there's so much of variety in rituals amongst all the different religious traditions. Some pray with a candle, some pray with a ghee lamp, some pray with fire. So all of them are doing different things. But one thing is common is the prayer beads. In Christianity we have the rosary. In Islam we have the tasbih. In Vedic culture we have the japamala. So different cultures, different traditions, different rituals. But they all use the prayer bead for chanting the names of God. In Islam, it's described Allah has 99 holy names. In the Lord's Prayer in the Bible, it's described, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. The name of God is hallowed, holy. So in this age that we're living in, to develop that loving relationship with the Supreme Being, it's done to the process of chanting the holy names of God. And as we're studying the Gita, we'll see this is the essential message that the Bhagavad Gita is trying to convey. So let's read on and let's see what Prabhupada says about this. This is confirmed in the Srimad Bhagavatam 3.33.7 as follows. Quote, O my Lord, a person who is chanting your holy name, although born of a low family like that of a Chandala, a dog eater, is situated on the highest platform of self-realization. So this is coming from the Srimad Bhagavat Purana. In human estimation and society, you may have been born in a very low family. Such a person must have performed all kinds of penance and sacrifices according to the Vedic rituals and studied the Vedic literatures many, many times after taking his bath in all the holy places of pilgrimage. So you can see the emphasis, wow, it's just amazing that if one takes to the process of chanting the names of God, that means then that in his previous lives, he's visited all the holy places, he's done all the rituals according to Karma Kanda, he studied the Vedas many, many times. See here, in this lifetime we don't even know Sanskrit. But in the previous lives you must have studied the Vedas many, many times. All of this must have occurred for you now to take to the process of chanting the names of God. Just see what a great elevation through the different processes of self-realization. So at the end of the 7th chapter, the last verse, Krishna also makes the same point. Tvesham dvanta gatam papam jananam punya karmanam te dvanda moha nirmukta bhajate mam drita vrata. So he's saying tesham dvanta gatam papam. For those after many, many births, when all these sinful reactions are finished, tesham dvanta gatam papam, jananam punya karmanam, and all their good pious activities are also finished. Jananam punya karmanam. Then tve dvanda moha nirmukta. When they moha, when they illusion about what this world is, when they're not illusioned anymore. Then bhajate mam drita vrata. Then they start to worship me. This is Krishna's own words at the end of the 7th chapter. So this is so amazing as we're learning about the consciousness and the development of the sincere soul, striving from self-realization, now aiming for God realization, trying to realize who is God, what is God, who is this person God, and his realizations through that, according to the scripture, that if one comes to the point of chanting the names of God, it's understood that he did all these previous activities in the past. Just see the greatness of simply doing this process of chanting as prescribed in the Padma Purana. So he goes on with this beautiful glorification. Such a person is considered to be the best of the Aryan family. You remember when Krishna was chastising Arjuna? Anarya justam asvargyam akritikaram Arjuna. What's happening to you, Arjun? You are coming in the Aryan family. And the Aryan family and the Aryan tradition, that culture is based on self-realization. So you are coming in such a great tradition and now you're behaving like this? So simply by doing this process of chanting the names of God, you are also connecting to the Aryan culture. So can you see what's happening gradually, devotees? We have now come to a process or a practice that can connect us to all the levels of Vedic culture, to the Sanskrit, to the Aryan culture, to the rituals, to the karma kanda. All of that becomes fulfilled just by doing this one practice of chanting the names of God. Isn't this amazing? Just this one practice. Just this one practice as prescribed in Padma Purana. So one must be intelligent enough to understand the purpose of the Vedas without being attached to the rituals only. So when one's intelligence becomes purified, vivas atmika buddhi, then eke kurunandana, then the focus is only on the one thing. You know, devotees, this is a very practical point about life. Because as much as we revere all these great personalities in Hinduism, we have all the great demigods. How many of them do you know? In the Shastras, it's described as 33 million demigods. We know about 10, 20 at most. We'll say 100. If you know 100, all the others that are helping you and serving you, the demigod that's growing your nails, the demigod that's blinking your eyes, the demigod that's growing your hair, do you ever offer one cup of water to that person? Never, because we don't know who they are. So the essential question is, when we're praying to all these different aspects of the spiritual platform, what happens at the time of death? Who are you going to call? Who are you going to call? Who are you going to call? Because you pray to so many, you can't call all of them. You have to focus on only one. And then if you choose that one, you'll be thinking, but what if he's not the Supreme One? What is that? What if it's the other one? So you're going to be more confused than anything else. That's why bhajate mam dhrita vrata. You focus on him only. For sure, if we're following Bhagavad Gita, then if we're a devotee of Gita, then for sure we know that Krishna is the Supreme Being. At the time of death, then who are you going to call to help you? You see the predicament we end up in? Therefore, we know for sure on the basis of Bhagavad Gita that Krishna is the Supreme Being, Purna Avatar. Every tradition in Hinduism accepts Krishna as a Supreme Personality of Godhead. Everyone will say, yes, Krishna is God. But we're not too sure about the other ones, right? We may have a doubt, we may not too sure. But based on Bhagavad Gita, we know Krishna is God. So why don't we just focus on that one aspect? And in that way, we won't be confused at the time of death. Because when death comes, who are you going to pray for then? We've created so much of variety within our prayers and within our rituals that we're praying to all the different devatas. So who's going to come at the time of death? They will also be confused. They're going to say, I was waiting for him. I thought he was going to call you. The devatas are going to say, I thought he was going to call you, Shiva. But no, I thought he was your devotee. He always prayed to you, Ganesh. So now even the devatas are confused, you are confused, and time is going because death comes, it just comes. So who are you going to be praying for? Devotees, this is a practical part of all this assessment. We have to be practical. Who are we going to call at that moment? If we are confused now, can you imagine how confused we're going to be at the time of death? So therefore, as Hindus, we follow Bhagavad Gita, and from Bhagavad Gita, we're learning that Krishna is God. So instead of having all this confusion, let's just develop our loving relationship with Him. And must not desire to be elevated to the heavenly kingdoms for a better quality of sense gratification. It is not possible for the common man in this age to follow all the rules and regulations of the Vedic rituals. So Prabhupada is being very kind and very compassionate. He's saying, very well, you want to do all these rituals for sense gratification, but can you really follow all of them? In this Kali Yuga, can you follow all of them? Can you get the pure ingredients to do the yagya? They're feeding cows back to the cows, and from that milk, what you'll get? And you want to offer that as yagya, as ghee, as milk, as yogurt, you want to offer that kind of thing? So unless you raise your own cows, if you're going to use milk and ghee from the shops to do yagya, what do you think, what kind of result do you think is going to come from the yagya? This is practical questions we have to think about. So everything, even though you may want to do these rituals, do you have a bona fide person who can practice karma kanda authentically? Do you have authentic ingredients? You see the difficulties we face? But anybody can chant the names of God. You don't need any requirements for that. You don't need anything for that. Just call on His name. So you see why in Kali Yuga this is the most practical? Because Kalo Sudra Sambhava. Everybody is born Sudra in Kali Yuga. Because they are born without samskara. They are born by lust. It was only by lust that we are born, not by samskara. We didn't learn Vedic samskara by then. If you study what is Vedic samskara to beget a child, you'll do backflips around your house. It's so intricate and so intense, but that is what is required to get a Brahmanical child. Now, if you don't do that and one is conceived out of lust, you expect that person to still be Brahman? We don't have any qualifications. Kalo Sudra Sambhava. In Kali Yuga, everyone is Sudra. So how are you going to do these yagyas now if you don't have a proper Brahman, you don't have a proper ingredients, and the cows are eating cows and the cows are eating fish? I remember reading an article saying that the biggest predator of the ocean is the cow. Because all the fish that they get, they grind it and mix it and feed it to the cows. Now what milk will come from that? You want to offer that as yagya? So see the practical aspect of life. By the process of chanting the names of God, it's practical for anyone, everyone in any situation. So he concludes here, nor is it possible to study all of the Vedanta and the Upanishads thoroughly. I was saying it takes 12 years to study Sanskrit. So do you have the mind? Can you remember how many verses of Bhagavad Gita you know? We know 1, 2, 5 verses maybe if we're lucky. Now, how are we going to study the Vedic Sanskrit? So you see how difficult it is to follow that path. It's not wrong, devotees. But for Kali Yuga, it's not practical. So he goes on. It requires much time, energy, knowledge, and resource to execute the purpose of the Vedas. So can you see how difficult it is if you're going to follow all of the Vedic tradition? Then what do? Vedascha sarverahammeva vedyo. Follow the essence of all the Vedas is to know me, Arjun. Once you know me and you're connecting to me, you're fulfilling all the Vedas. It's as simple as that, but it's as difficult as that. This is hardly possible in this age. The best purpose of the Vedic culture is served, however, by chanting the holy name of the Lord as recommended by Lord Chaitanya, the deliverer of the fallen souls. So the sadhu who brought this out to the world is Lord Chaitanya. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, after studying and hearing of all the Vedic knowledge, his spiritual teacher told him this, that this is the essence of all the Vedas, is to chant the holy name of God. Let's hear this beautiful story. It's described here. When Lord Chaitanya was asked by a great Vedic scholar, Prakashananda Saraswati, why he, the Lord, was chanting the holy name of the Lord like a sentimentalist, instead of studying the Vedanta philosophy, the Lord replied that his spiritual master had found him to be a great fool and thus asked him to chant the holy name of Lord Krishna. He did so and became ecstatic like a madman. So we see Srila Prabhupada following in this line also did the same thing. He chanted here in Thompson Square Park in New York, and from that the whole Hare Krishna movement was born. In this age of Kali, most of the population is foolish and not adeptly educated to understand Vedanta philosophy. So you may be educated, but do you understand Vedanta philosophy? Have you understood Sanskrit? That's a challenge. So he's saying not everybody's going to have that level of capacity. So what can those people do with their lives? Chant the holy names of the Lord. Because after studying all of that Vedanta philosophy, you're going to come to the same conclusion, eh na? Vedascha sarvera hammeva vedyo. After studying all of that, you're going to come to know that Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam, that the supreme being on the spiritual platform is Krishna. So whether you're coming from the Vedanta study or whether you heard it in the authorized line, the goal is the same, to come to that point. So once you come to that point, doesn't matter how you got there, you're there now. So he concludes here. The best purpose of Vedanta philosophy is served by inoffensively chanting the holy name of the Lord. Vedanta is the last word in Vedic wisdom, and the author of the knower of Vedanta philosophy is Lord Krishna. And the highest Vedantist is the great soul who takes pleasure in chanting the holy name of the Lord. That is the ultimate purpose of all Vedic mysticism.